will be no voluntary merger of the Thunder Bay and Northwestern health units. Good evening and thank you for joining us. The two health units in this region have decided not to support a voluntary merger.
The boards of health with the Thunder Bay District Health Unit and the Northwestern Health Unit have each passed resolutions saying they don't agree with the merger that was proposed by the Ford government. The NWHU coverage area includes the Kenora and Rainy River districts, while the Thunder Bay Health Unit also covers a large area spanning 230,000 square kilometers. Back in November, the two boards began exploring a possible merger at the request of the province. Any health units that got on board would have access to a 3-year merger support fund. But officials with both health units feel the sheer size of the merged agency would lead to service issues. And with tax levy charges much higher in the Northwestern Health Unit, taxpayers here would end up paying more.
So to balance it out, the levies in the Thunder Bay District, which is Thunder Bay, all our area, would jump about 35%, which is huge. And if you consider the Thunder Bay, that's a huge, huge hit. So that is one area, even though, I mean, health isn't about dollars and cents necessarily. Okay, the other huge one was the geography involved. I mean, if you amalgamated those house units, you'd be going from Manitowoc, Marathon, basically to the Manitoba border. And that, you know, the government fails to realize, even though they say they don't, I don't think they realize, you know, how huge an area that is.
And again, the NWHU Board of Health also voted against the merger.
The committee that was formed to help Thunder Bay achieve its ambitious housing targets has begun its work.
The Mayor's Housing Task Force held its first meeting today, with members recognizing the considerable work ahead, Vasilios Bellows reports.
Another effort to tackle one of Thunder Bay's biggest challenges.
How are we going to accomplish this goal of more housing for more people across all the housing needs?
The Mayor's Housing Task Force held its first meeting on Wednesday. The committee is meant to help Thunder Bay achieve its ambitious housing targets, including a provincial pledge to build 2,200 units by 2031. The committee has experience from a range of sectors, including construction, development, and education. Mayor Ken Boshkoff is chairing the committee and says the provincial and federal governments are looking for these initiatives when considering funding.
Want to see communities rallying. The fact that we're coming together and we're covering all the bases. When a minister asks a question, we're going to be giving him an answer. Yeah, no, the people from the college were there. Yes, the people from the disabilities community were there.
In February, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced $21 million to support housing builds in Thunder Bay. There's also been provincial support, with Premier Doug Ford making the trip earlier this month to provide $870,000 for housing-related infrastructure. During the local task force's meeting, there was consensus that the city lacks all forms of housing.
Huge number of individuals who are living, paying rent beyond their means.
Vice Chair Ken Ranta says that includes affordable housing. Ranta hears the struggles as a director of the Thunder Bay DSAB, but feels the task force will address this.
Incentives for developing of affordable housing is really going to attack that need wholeheartedly. The great part about this committee is it's not just focused on affordable housing, but that it's housing across the board. And so they're all sectors, all areas that will benefit from the investment.
The plans now for the task force to meet once a month, with their work expected to be discussed at city council meetings in the future. Vasilios Bellows, TBT News.
In response to what's being called a housing crisis in its territory, Anishinaabe Nation is holding a 2-day summit here in Thunder Bay. It began this morning and aims to find community-based solutions to the housing shortage. The event features a number of partners throughout the region, engaging in panels and presentations to promote housing solutions. NAN Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler was at the summit this morning and spoke about the federal budget released yesterday. He sees the push for more housing across the country, but feels the efforts are lacking in remote communities.
This federal government's idea of a housing crisis is what's happening in Vancouver or what's happening in Toronto. And yes, I recognize that there's housing needs in these major urban centers, but there was very little mention of the need for First Nation housing in our communities.
The Housing Summit wraps up tomorrow.
The region's MPs are reacting to the 2024 federal budget, which was released yesterday by the Trudeau government.
Cabinet Minister Patty Hajdu insists her party's budget will be good for Northwestern Ontario, but Kenora MP Eric Melillo says he won't support it. Lee Noonan has more.
The federal Liberals unveiled their 2024 budget yesterday in Ottawa. It includes more than $39 billion of net new spending over the next 6 years. Thunder Bay Superior North MP Patty Hajdu says much of the budget is aimed at making life more affordable for younger generations.
Well, there are a lot of great things in this budget that will affect residents of Northwestern Ontario, regardless of where people live all across the country.
Hajdu highlights the billions in funding for housing initiatives and the $1 billion school food program as budget items that will help in the region. There's also an increase in funding for FedNor.
New money to really focus on new technology and businesses and corporations that are looking to accelerate their growth in the area of new technology, AI, a variety of different kinds of technologies that we know that we're going to need in the years to come.
The budget also includes $89 million over 4 years for winter road and all-season road projects to remote First Nations. Kenora MP Eric Melillo isn't impressed.
Always little local things that we try to work on and improve, but we have to look at the budget as an overall document, and overall it clearly misses the mark.
Melillo says the budget is high spend, high tax, and that he wants to see a cap on government spending and an end to the carbon tax.
What it really comes down to is it's not going to do anything to make life more affordable. It's going to continue to exacerbate the cost of living crisis that we're seeing in Northwestern Ontario and right across the country.
With quarterly carbon tax rebates having just gone out on the 15th, Hajdu says it's misleading to suggest that policy is responsible for an increase in cost of living. The minority Liberals will have to garner support for their budget to pass. Melillo says that will not be coming from him or his party. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
There are concerns in this province over proposed plans to close a number of Ontario's water testing sites.
The move could force some homeowners to pay for water testing that's currently done for free, and some worry it could lead to another Walkerton-style outbreak. CTV's Siobhan Morris explains.
The predictions are bleak, haunted by memories of disasters past.
They're going to end up with people being sick, and unfortunately, if it's like Walkerton, people dying.
MPPs and workers at Ontario's public health labs are trying to prevent the closure of 6 of the province's 11 water testing sites. The consolidation plan recommended in 2017 and again in December by the then acting Auditor General. At the time, a lack of sustainable funding was noted.
We're seeing crisis by design and forcing the possible closure of these sites.
The auditor notes that many labs ship out more tests than they perform in-house, up to 91%. The warning from lab techs is we may not get the best results if samples have even further to travel.
If you close a rural community like Thunder Bay and you ship to Sudbury, it's 11 hours. That could very well compromise those tests.
The proposal includes phasing out free testing for people using private wells for water, transitioning to paying $150 a test.
If people aren't able to buy food, what's the likelihood they're going to test their water unless their water tastes bad or looks discolored?
If labs do close, OPSEU warns
outbreaks could go unchecked. We could have another Walkerton disaster.
7 people died and more than 2,000 became ill.
In the spring of 2000, Walkerton was hit by tragedy, its water system infected with E. coli, a disaster an inquiry found could have been prevented had the water been properly chlorinated and had environmental funding not been slashed.
We are investing in our public health units. We are investing in our lab techs.
When it comes to consolidation,
the ministry has not made any decisions about changes to the provincial well water testing programs, including which laboratories conduct testing or water samples.
Order.
If there are closures and when another pandemic strikes, lab techs warn
crisis mode. There's lives at stake.
Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
The president of Rainbow Collective, Jason Veltri, has announced his retirement from the group he helped found.
Veltri has spent years advocating for the rights of the local members of 2S LGBTQIA+ community. He says he's stepping down in part because of recent death threats against him. Jaden Billick has the story.
Jason Veltry's dedication to the Pride movement in the face of adversity resonated throughout his previous tenure as chair of Thunder Pride, and continued when he launched the Rainbow Collective in 2021. He's been front and center both at Pride celebrations and protests against hate and discrimination. He's now made his decision to step down and feels passing the torch to future generations will preserve his work.
I see my role now as more of someone that steps behind the scenes and helps the next generation of leaders step forward and find their voice and maneuver the system that is government, that is advocacy, that is raising money. So I'm not going too far, but I'm not going to be the face of the organization anymore.
Veltry's efforts over the years have led to confrontations with opposing voices. And unfortunately, there have been death threats made against him last June and again this past February.
The straw that broke the camel's back, per se, was the bomb threat at Drag Storytime, where I was going to have family attending that. And when you really think about the big scheme of things, leaders have a shelf life.
As we approach the June Pride Month, Veltry's main focus will be the Community Safety and Well-Being Advisory Committee by the Thunder Bay Police Services Board, as well as the Board of Directors of Thunder Bay Counseling, along with supporting the 2025 Scotties Tournament of Hearts. Since his notice of resignation, Veltry says he's most grateful for the privilege of serving the frontline battle, thanking the support of fellow board members who helped him find his own voice of advocacy.
We have created a community that is welcoming, inclusive, and values diversity, even if the loud voices from the other side are coming at us. We know where we stand in this world today, and that it's because of those folks and the folks that I've worked with on boards that have led us to this place.
Jaden Billick, TBT News.
Thunder Bay fire rescue crews were called to a kitchen fire on the city's south side last night. The blaze broke out in a basement unit of an apartment complex on Cumming Street. Firefighters arrived to find thick smoke on the first floor, which was spreading to the second floor. The fire was quickly extinguished. The lone occupant of the apartment unit used an extinguisher to slow the spread of the flames. They were treated by EMS for smoke inhalation. Fire officials determined unattended cooking was the cause.
Drivers here in Thunder Bay are among those seeing a hefty increase in gasoline prices this week. The price at the pumps went up around 10 cents over the past 24 hours, and most gas bars around the city are now charging almost $1.76 per liter. The local prices previously went up from $1.62 to $1.65 when the carbon tax hike took effect on April 1st. Fuel experts say this latest increase is due to higher cost of summer blended gas and the rising price of oil. The Toronto area is expecting a 13-cent increase at midnight tonight, with prices rising to $1.79. That would be the highest gas price since August 2022.
A bit of a shock for sure for drivers across this province.
Absolutely.
All right, let's turn to the weather now, Fiona. Yesterday it was the wind, and today it was the rain. It was a wet one out there.
It definitely was, and it was all coming from a Colorado low moving through the central U.S. and coming into our region. As you can see, it's a fairly large system that extended through all the way up into the Red Lake region, and that's how it looked at the beginning of the day. Throughout the day, it just continues to cycle. Now, there was a lot of activity as far as the rain is concerned. Temperature-wise, we didn't see a whole lot of movement in temperatures. We had a low of 3, a high of 4, although winds still have been relatively gusty this afternoon, up to 52 kilometers an hour at times from the east-northeast. So it was definitely a cold one compared to what we have been seeing, but we're not the only ones that saw very little movement in temperatures. To the north, we had early morning lows of 0 Celsius, so through Red Lake, Sioux Lookout, into Kenora, and through Armstrong and Greenstone, they started the day with snow or wet snow. It's transitioned to some freezing drizzle in Red Lake and some rain in Greenstone. A little bit further south, of course, the rain continues, but the low today was 4. They're currently at their high of 5, and that trend continued all the way through, even into Sault Ste. Marie, where they had a very rainy night, much drier day, although they did have one brief period of rain this afternoon. I believe it was around 2 o'clock, but otherwise mostly cloudy. They had a low of 4. They're currently at their high of 6. Here in the city of Thunder Bay, we won't drop very much, only going to fall maybe a degree or 2 to 2 Celsius, with those periods of rain continuing. Winds are going to start to taper off. Over the next hour or so, they'll be about 30 kilometers an hour, and then they'll taper off down to 10. We should see the majority of this rain gone by mid-morning tomorrow, and then we're going to rebound quite nicely. The temperatures are going to be much more comfortable tomorrow. However, there's still a possibility that we could see flurries for the end of the week. Nothing that's going to stick around, but there's a chance. I'll explain how that's all going to come about later on the newscast.
All right, thank you so much, Fiona. Well, I'm hoping that those flurries, they do not stick around, all right? Well, when we come back, we'll be turning our attention to a year-old mystery of stolen gold bars and over $1 million in U.S. cash from Toronto Pearson's airport. And we have all the details on that, plus more, as your Wednesday News Hour continues.
This one is a carefully planned and well-organized group of criminals from both inside and outside of airport facilities that orchestrated this theft.